Rate hike, mortgage stress. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.heise here and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee because we're looking at an article discussing, well, suburbs that are going to feel the mortgage stress after this rate hike, everyone. Now, if you haven't been following the channel, the cash rate has increased and I haven't actually updated my chart. Oops. But just imagine one little pixel moves up at the end of that line and then that's what it is, okay? Little pixel bumped up. We're up 2.25 basis points, everyone, which is 0.25%. But that's a big move because it hasn't happened in a decade. There are going to be people who their entire, 30-year-olds, their entire working life, they've never seen interest rates going up. Or maybe, mid-20-year-olds. Now, housing stress. Let's look at this definition here, everyone. We'll bring this one up. Housing stress is typically defined as lower income households that spend more than 30% of their gross income on housing costs. Mortgage stress, well, 30% of your gross income on mortgage costs. Now, if it's low income or not, that's the question. This is the ABS definition, so I'd argue it's low income. Now, let me bring up this little chart here. Hang on. I got to find it. Here we go. Showing you the differences in household income groups in Australia. You've got the top over $2,000. You've got the middle just under 1,000, and you've got lower income, adjusted lower income, just over $400. Australia is a stratified country, guys. We're not all egalitarian. It's just not as formalized as some other parts in the world. So let's have a look at this article about housing stress. So the top 10 suburbs set to face the highest mortgage stress after the rate hike. And remember, this rate hike is tiny. We're still at 0.35. We're not even at 1%. 3% cash rate used to be considered the emergency rate, okay, because that gave them that gave them the capacity to go lower. Now they can't go lower with the current Reserve Bank governor. He realizes it's fruitless, so they can only go up. We'll have to see how high it can keep climbing. So yesterday's cash rate hike is set to hit areas in Australia's biggest cities and a number of regional hotspots across New South Wales. Homeowners in New South Wales and Victoria are set to be hit hardest by the RBA's historic cash rate hike. And it's historic because it hasn't happened for so long, not because it's big or anything. With affluent suburbs expected to be pummeled as interest rates surge. But really, they should have the largest amount of disposable income, so they should be able to deal with it. Just, a $5,000 monthly mortgage repayment isn't as concerning if you're earning $15,000 a month, is it? Finder compared average monthly mortgage repayments with monthly household incomes for suburbs across Australia to determine the top 10 mortgage-stressed suburbs. The comparison website's analysis found homeowners in Sydney's Darlington have the highest potential for mortgage stress, with the average home loan repayment making up 105% of the average household income. The income in that area? Blair Gowrie. So did they say the income? Here's the thing, because if we let's go to the ABS, and if we jump over here, average weekly earnings are 1,748. But there's a huge disparity between this. You got retail workers much lower than this, and you got mining workers much higher. So they're just saying they're basing against the average household income. Is it the average household income for these areas? That's what's a little unclear in the way this article's been written. So you got 88%, a seaside town of Melbourne CBD, and Mullumbimby, 85% near Byron Bay, are also expected to see similar pressures near Byron. I mean, how much of the income is actually declared there? With repayments making up a considerable portion of the average monthly income. The chart calculated each suburb's average property price based on recent sales of both houses and units. Suburbs in the top 20% of household income were excluded from the list. Okay, so that's good. So they're getting rid of the top echelons. But you've also got to understand how many people in these areas are bought years ago. even 5 years ago. Let's have a look. I want to bring up an example here. This is asking price in regional New South Wales, in Mobar. Look at that change there. So if you just bought, hang on, I need to bring it up full screen. So if you just bought in 2020, you're sitting on 600 grand. So you're going to be in a different position as someone who bought for $1 million this year. Okay? So, yeah. Just the recent sales aren't going to indicate everyone. They're just going to indicate the people at the edge. How many of them are going to have the capacity to deal with this? That's the question. How many of them are going to make it happen? The study has some limitations. Study, is that really the word? Anyway, like being unable to discern the amount of homes within a suburb that aren't owned by locals and higher rates of retirees affecting income data. See, that's the thing. How many of these boutique seaside places are just full of holiday homes and that are owned by, a rich toff in the city that doesn't care? The data also used household income figures recorded 6 years ago from the 2016 census. So, what's the point of this then? It's 6 years out of date. Okay, it's a completely different world then to now. Okay, but I mean, it's getting a headline. We're going to see more and more of these things where it's about the headline. And look, it's working. I clicked on it. I'm reading it. So let's have a look at the full list of the suburbs. I don't even know if this is relevant. Who cares? I guess income hasn't gone up in 6 years, but ownership has changed in 6 years. They need to look at the people who would have purchased 6 years ago, what their mortgage would have been 6 years ago, and how much would be left on it now. But okay, let's pretend if you're earning your income in these areas hasn't changed in 6 years. This is just bullshit, guys. This is just bullshit. And this is the thing. We're seeing it again and again. Social housing advocacy group, Everybody's Home. They want their social housing. And the point is, social housing isn't the solution. The solution is reducing the burden that we place on people so that they can build up their own lives, not that they're dependent on the charity of the state or others. I guess, that's called individual responsibility, and that's not a popular thing these days. I'm turning into an old boomer, aren't I? They surveyed more than 52,000 households across Australia to determine which suburbs were at risk of falling behind in mortgage repayments. It found the Labor seat of Chiefeley in Sydney, which includes Mount Druitt and Rooty Hill, recorded as 73.6% of households in stress. The more affluent electorate of Mitchell, currently held by the Liberal Party, which includes the suburbs of Balkham Hills and Winston Hills, had the highest rate of stress with 73% impacted. Over in southern Sydney, 70% of mortgage holders in the Labor seat of Barton, which included Rockdale and Hurstville, were also in mortgage stress. Financial stress was defined as having less than 5% of income left over after expenses. Okay, so this is a different definition. This isn't housing stress. This is financial stress. So 5%. What are your expenses? What? Is that your rent, your living expenses, your entertainment expenses? Is this being able to only save 5% a month? Is that what they're considering stress? So, the RBA announcement marks the first rate rise in 11 years since November 2010 and is a desperate attempt to clamp down on skyrocketing inflation, which has reached an annual rate of 5.1% and has sent prices climbing at the fastest rate in 2 decades. Okay. How many of the things that we purchase here in Australia are affected by import costs, overseas costs, the fact that the dollar has dropped? Do you think increasing interest rates is going to impact inflation? Maybe it might. Let's have a look. What's the dollar sitting at now? Has the dollar lifted up on that news? Let's have a look. Forex, not really. Not really. 70.9. So, St. Vincent de Paul Society National President Claire Victory criticised the fact the lowest earning Australians had taken yet another hit in the lead up to the federal election. Today's rate rise will be another kick in the teeth for Australians living in poverty, who already stretched every dollar to its limits, Miss Victory said. The surging cost of living, shortage of affordable housing, increasing insecure work and stagnant wages are making it all but impossible for a growing number of Australians to survive. Okay, affordable housing, political issue. Completely a political issue. A lot of it is to do with supply. They're making it harder and more expensive to build houses. They put impediments in front of it. Our local Greens our local Greens councillor here in Brisbane, protesting against low-cost housing, average housing, spec homes out in Ipswich. Yeah, and what's the average cost of the house in his electorate? Over $1 million. The ALP wasted no time in sticking the boot to the Prime Minister after the announcement on Tuesday afternoon. It was hard enough to make ends meet under Scott Morrison, and today it got even harder for millions of Australians, Labor leader Anthony Albanese and Shadow Treasurer Jim Chalmers said in a joint press release. The problem with Labor is they can make all these promises and dreams, all this bullshit, but we all know they're going to end up just taking more from us. Every person deep down knows, even if they're just saying, oh, we'll just tax the rich or we'll just tax these companies, it always finds a way to screw in all of us. You know, if you run a small business, remember when they changed tax repayments to monthly instead of quarterly? Wasn't that awesome? Even before today's decision, Australians were facing a fully blown cost of living crisis on his watch. Scott Morrison's economic credibility was already in tatters. Now it's completely shredded. While a rate rise of 0.25% is relatively minor, economists believe the RBA won't stop, with some experts predicting rates will rise to 2.5% by the end of 2022. So there we go. Let's have a talk about this one. It's based on 6-year-old wage data, and there's no way to know who lives in these actual areas and who is owning these houses from more affluent areas. So it's kind of pointless, isn't it? This is the thing. We're going to see more and more of these drama pieces stoking the fears about mortgage stress and rate hikes. Sure, there will be some people doing it tough. That's going to happen, but there always are. If anything, the government's intervention in the market may exacerbate it a little bit for helping people get in that maybe not have been ready. But frankly, if you've fought all your life to get a house, you're going to do everything you can to keep it. So what do you think, everyone? Do you think this study is important, or is it a bit of propaganda? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'm just getting cynical about all of this stuff. Anyway, thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe to the channel. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on this one in the comments down below. If you're a fan and want to help out the channel, there are a few ways you can. You can join us on YouTube or Patreon, use our referral links from Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or AussieBroadband, or help us out with architectural services. Take care, guys, and I better answer this phone call. Bye for now. Hey, honey.